Welcome back to OatMind podcast.
Great to be here.
Today, we're diving deep into something I think, many of us think about constantly. The humble to-do list.
Ah, yes. The list. Love it or hate it.
Exactly. Does keeping track of our daily tasks actually help? I mean, not just getting things done, but, with our overall emotional well-being.
That's the big question, isn't it? Productivity and feeling good.
Yeah. So we've pulled together some really interesting stuff, expert advice on making lists that actually work, a big research study looking at the science behind time management.
A meta-analysis, right?
That's the one. And even some real-world takes from people who, really rely on their lists day to day.
So anecdotes meet data.
Pretty much. Our mission today is to unpack whether this, everyday tool truly delivers on boosting both how much we achieve and how good we feel.
And maybe, just maybe, if there's ever a case for just ditching it altogether.
Could be. We'll also touch briefly on how something like, say, the OatMind note-taking app might fit into this whole picture.
Okay, sounds like a plan. Where do we start?
Right. Basics first. What is a to-do list? According to Asana, the work management people, it's simply a list of things you need to do.
Seems straightforward enough.
It does, but they immediately add a caveat. Just writing stuff down doesn't guarantee it's useful.
Ah, okay, so there's a catch.
Yeah. They argue that effectively tracking deadlines can help you prioritize and, accomplish great work, but a disorganized list.
Let me guess. Not so helpful.
Exactly. It can lead to less clarity, more confusion, and what they call work about work. Basically, managing the list becomes the work.
I can see that. It resonates with that feeling of information overload, wanting a shortcut to just knowing what he's doing without the extra hassle.
Totally. And it highlights that the quality of the list matters, not just its existence. A bad list might just add to the mental clutter.
Good point. So how do we make a good list then?
Well, Asana brings up something interesting. They challenge the traditional handwritten list.
Oh, but crossing things off on paper feels so satisfying.
It really does. They acknowledge that. But they argue that digital to-do list apps are actually far more effective overall.
Okay, why is that?
Flexibility, mainly. Sorting, prioritizing, it's all much easier. No more rewriting the entire list when one thing changes.
The constant rewrite, yeah, that's tedious.
Right. With digital, you can drag and drop tasks, use custom tags for priority, set up recurring tasks.
Those are lifesavers sometimes.
Totally. And you can visualize your work differently, like a standard list or maybe a Kanban board view. Plus, they mention the collaborative side.
How so?
An organized personal list apparently makes it easier to contribute effectively to team projects. Your stuff is sorted so you know where you fit in.
That makes sense. So the digital list is more dynamic, it adapts. Paper is kind of static.
That's a good way to put it. It can evolve with your day.
Interesting. Okay, so that's the list itself. But what about the bigger idea? Does time management, which often involves these lists, actually work?
Great question. Let's zoom out to that meta-analysis published in PMC. It looked at tons of studies on this.
Right, the study of studies gives a broader view.
Exactly. And they define time management pretty broadly. It's how we structure, protect, and adapt our time.
Structure, protect, adapt. Okay, so like routines, saying no?
Yeah, things like having a routine, protecting your time by, say, avoiding unnecessary interruptions, and being flexible when things change.
Got it. So the to-do list is just one piece of that puzzle.
Precisely. And the findings from this meta-analysis are pretty compelling, actually.
Oh, yeah. What do they find?
Overall, it suggests time management does enhance job performance, academic achievement, and, crucially, well-being.
Okay, that's pretty positive. Good news for people juggling a lot.
Definitely encouraging. And interestingly, they found the link between time management and job performance seems to have gotten stronger over the years.
Stronger? Why would that be?
They speculate it might be because many modern jobs offer more autonomy and flexibility. So being able to manage your own time becomes even more critical for success.
That makes sense. Less external structure means more need for internal structure.
Right. But, and this is important, the analysis also raises some caveats, some warnings.
Okay. It's not all sunshine and rainbows then.
Not entirely. There's a growing concern, they note, in popular media and among academics about whether some time management techniques could be counterproductive or even harmful.
Harmful? How?
Well, concerns about fostering a very individualistic, maybe profit-oriented view of time, like time is just a commodity.
And that could potentially worsen social inequality?
Yeah, for instance, advice that works for a CEO might be totally impractical for someone with, say, major caregiving responsibilities outside of work.
That's a really important point. Context matters hugely.
It does. They also flagged the potential downsides of thinking of time is money too literally. It could actually increase stress and decrease well-being in some areas.
So the mindset we bring to time management is critical. It's not just about the techniques themselves.
Exactly. If it becomes this relentless drive for efficiency that ignores everything else, it can backfire.
Okay, that nuance is crucial.
It really is. Think of historically, it's interesting. The link between time management and performance goes back to scientific management, Taylorism, and all that.
Right, optimizing factory work.
Yeah, but the study also points out that around the same time, there were female thinkers, often from a feminist perspective, focusing on efficient household management.
Oh, interesting. So parallel tracks there.
Kind of. And the link to well-being isn't new either. Ancient scholars apparently believed organizing time was key to a good life.
So this isn't just a modern corporate obsession. It's a long-standing human concern.
Seems like it. Now, back to the meta-analysis specifics. For job performance, they found a moderate impact.
Moderate. Okay. Affecting things like supervisor reviews.
Yeah, both results-based stuff like appraisals and behavior-based things like motivation. Interestingly, they found less variation here compared to academic settings or well-being.
Less variation. Why might that be?
Possibly because work environments, even flexible ones, often have more inherent structure or clearer expectations than, say, studying on your own.
Makes sense. More stability, maybe more predictable outcomes from applying these techniques.
Could be. Now, in academic settings, the effect seemed slightly higher overall.
Higher than in jobs.
Yeah, a bit. And interestingly, it had a more significant impact on behavior-based performance, like motivation, reducing procrastination.
So less about the final grade itself and more about the actions that lead to it.
That's what it suggests. Time management seems more directly linked to doing the stuff that leads to academic success, rather than just the final result like GPA.
That's a really valuable insight for students, isn't it? Focus on the process, the habits.
Exactly. It's about cultivating those study habits, not just cramming.
Okay, so performance is one thing. What about well-being? You said it linked there too.
Yes, and this was quite striking. The meta-analysis found that time management has a slightly stronger positive impact on overall well-being than it does on performance.
Stronger impact on well-being. Really?
Yeah.
That kind of flips the usual script.
It does. Specifically, they found links to higher job satisfaction and, notably, higher life satisfaction overall.
Wow. Life satisfaction, that's significant.
And conversely, it appeared to alleviate various forms of distress, particularly psychological distress like anxiety and worry.
So managing time well isn't just about doing more. It's potentially about feeling better, feeling less stressed.
That seems to be a major takeaway. The sense of control it provides might be key for well-being.
That's powerful. Maybe the real win isn't just productivity, but peace of mind.
Could well be. Now let's bring in some of those real-world voices. We looked at some Reddit threads where people talked about their own to-do list habits.
The trenches.
Yeah.
What did people say?
A lot of people described using lists as a brain dump. Just get it all out of their heads.
Yeah, I get that. Frees up mental space.
Exactly. They found it helped with focus, reduced the energy spent just remembering everything, prioritization felt easier, and that simple act of checking things off. Huge motivator, sense of accomplishment.
Oh yeah, that little check mark feels good.
Some even admitted adding tasks they'd already done just to get the satisfaction of crossing them off.
I might have done that once or twice. It works. Creates momentum.
It really does seem to. One user made a good point about procrastination. When you avoid tasks, it makes it harder to focus on other things because your brain keeps nagging you about the stuff you're not doing.
Right, that mental bandwidth gets eaten up by the things you're putting off.
So the list helps externalize that, frees you up. Another user mentioned the Zeigarnik effect.
Zeigarnik effect. What's that?
It's this psychological thing where unfinished tasks tend to linger in our minds, creating this low-level anxiety, like an open loop.
Okay. Like a song stuck in your head, but it's your unfinished report.
Exactly. And writing it down, apparently, can help quiet that mental noise, signal to your brain that it's being dealt with.
That makes a lot of sense. Acknowledging the open loop.
But there was also a really insightful comment about the emotional side.
Oh.
Someone pointed out that if just making the list becomes emotionally triggering or stressful, it might indicate a deeper issue. Maybe burnout, anxiety, perfectionism, something that the list itself isn't going to solve.
That's a crucial reality check. The tool isn't a fix for everything. Sometimes the problem lies elsewhere.
Right. Productivity tools aren't one size fits all, and they definitely interact with our mental health in complex ways.
Very true. You can't just list your way out of burnout.
Definitely not. Now, let's bring in James Clear. He writes a lot about focus and habits.
Atomic Habits guy. Yeah, good stuff.
He emphasizes that real focus requires saying no to other things right now.
The opportunity cost of attention.
Exactly. He argues most people don't struggle with focusing itself, they struggle with deciding what to focus on. There are too many options pulling at us.
That rings true. Decision paralysis.
Yeah. And he busts the multitasking myth. Our brains just can't truly focus on two things at once without a switching cost.
Right, that mental friction every time you shift gears.
Yeah.
It drains you and slows you down.
Totally. A good to-do list, then, can help make those decisions clearer. This is important. This isn't.
It becomes a tool for deliberate attention allocation.
Nose phrase. Clear also talks about Warren Buffett's to-list strategy. Have you heard of this?
Vaguely. Remind me.
Okay, so you write down your top 25 career goals or priorities.
25. Okay, that's a lot.
Then you circle your absolute top 5. That's list A.
Right. The vital few.
Then the other 20, that's list B, and list B becomes your avoid at all cost list.
Avoid? Really?
Yeah, you actively avoid working on those until you've achieved significant success with your top 5.
Wow. That's ruthless prioritization.
Isn't it? It really hammers home the need to focus intensely on what matters most and eliminate distractions, even if those distractions are other good goals.
The enemy of great is good, sort of thing.
Exactly. Clear also suggests measuring your results to maintain focus. That feedback loop is motivating.
Seeing progress keeps you going.
And, importantly, focus on the process, not just the event or the outcome. Learn to love the daily practice.
Right. Fall in love with the boredom of consistency, almost. That's where results come from.
He offers some practical mind hacks, too. Like, pick one anchor task for the day. Manage your energy, not just your time.
Oh, the energy management thing is key. Working on hard stuff when you're sharpest.
Yeah. Avoid checking email first thing. Don't let others set your agenda. Leave your phone in another room while you work. Use full screen mode on your computer.
All good practical tips to minimize those incoming distractions. Create a focus bubble.
So thinking about tools again, like the OatMind note-taking app we mentioned, where does that fit?
Well, based on what we've discussed, it seems like it could be really useful for that initial brain dump stage.
Right, getting it all out of your head, like the Reddit user said.
Exactly. You could just capture everything quickly in OatMind without worrying about structure yet. Reduce that mental load.
And then maybe organize it later, either within OatMind itself for simpler lists, or transfer it to a more dedicated task manager if you need that heavier structure.
Precisely. It acts as that initial capture point, that digital napkin almost.
Yeah.
The key is finding a system, whatever it looks like, that reduces the clutter in your head and helps you focus.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this all up. The big question, does a to-do list help?
Well, based on everything, the research, the advice, the experiences, the answer seems to be yes, but.
Yes, but.
Elaborate.
Yes, when used effectively and mindfully, it seems it can boost productivity by providing structure, aiding prioritization, freeing up mental RAM.
Okay.
And yes, it also seems it can positively impact emotional well-being, that sense of control, accomplishment, potentially reduced anxiety.
Right, the well-being link was surprisingly strong in the research.
It was, but it's not a magic bullet.
No silver bullet here.
No. And for some people, or if used poorly, like an overwhelming, disorganized list, it could actually increase feelings of overwhelm or trigger those negative emotions we talked about.
So mindful and intentional use is key, finding what works for you. That really seems to be the core takeaway. It's a tool, and its value depends entirely on how you wield it within your larger approach to time, attention, and well-being.
So whether it's your ally or source of stress really depends on that approach.
Seems that way.
The sources we looked at point towards embracing digital tools for flexibility, prioritizing ruthlessly like Buffett, focusing on the process like Clear advises, and being aware of your emotional reaction to it all.
And maybe that biggest benefit, cutting across everything, is simply the sense of structure and control it can provide when done well.
Yeah, that feeling of having a handle on things seems huge.
So we'd really encourage listeners to experiment. Try different methods, different tools, see what clicks.
Definitely. Consider digital options, think hard about your real priorities, and don't forget to celebrate the small wins along the way.
Acknowledge that progress.
Hopefully this deep dive gave everyone a more nuanced picture of to-do lists and task management. What stands out most to you from all this? Any strategies you're now thinking about differently?
We genuinely love to hear listeners' thoughts and experiences on this. The community forums, social media, let us know what works for you or what doesn't.
Please do. And maybe a final thought to leave people with.
Go for it.
If that meta-analysis is right and effective time management can genuinely enhance life satisfaction,
Yeah.
then maybe the most important task we can put on our list is to regularly check if our system, our lists, our habits is actually serving our overall well-being, to keep tweaking it so it helps us build a life well lived.
Making the process itself a priority? I like that. A meta task for well-being.
Exactly. Thanks for diving deep with us today.